All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vivian Eckstein. I'm a painter, and I'm going to talk about my work in general first, and then I'm going to talk about my current project, which is called Ambivalent Uniform, which you will also see there on the left side. I studied art in Karlsruhe in Germany and in Paris in France. And I was Meisterschüler 2018, and since then I'm a freelance artist and I'm also an art educator for museums. I use oil mostly, and I do large-scale works, but also in recent years smaller works. And my work is very personal. I talk about body awareness. I use a lot of mythology and history and literature as references in my work. Here we go to the next one. So we will see some of the people, some of the persons I paint, they tend to morph and have animal features. I used to do a lot of group portraits, which were very surrealistic and showed things that would kind of turn into something that cannot be, while still remaining a study kind of how interaction works, how human interaction works. So I'm talking about being together, interacting as humans, and also about loneliness, I would say. In 2022, last year, I had a residency of 5 months in Madrid, and there my painting style changed a bit. I used more of the pink color, which before was much more of my background, but now it stood in the front. And I also used flower and wallpapers as a background, as a means of having the people I painted in a more safe and secluded place, I would say. Another theme of my work, which I find is very important, is that I often reference my own paintings. Here, this painting, it was done in 2019. It is called Dame auf Spiegelei, which is a lady on a fried egg. And when I was in Madrid, this painting was in an exhibition and it got sold there to a collection. And I could not do the usual thing of my ritual of packing it up and kind of saying goodbye to this painting. So I painted it into another painting of mine. And when this one also got sold, I put this one also into another painting of mine. So I'm having kind of a very closed circle of inspiration, and I'm working with the themes and the people I paint for a long time. This is another example of it, another painting from 2019. And what I do here for the first time is that I make the mask that I painted in textile. So I made a textile object. And these textile objects, they are really always coming from the painting. So first there is a sketch, then there is a painting, and the clothing and the masking that I use is then made into actual clothing and masks by me. They are called wearable objects because in theory you could wear them. They are clothing, but they are not yet worn, but they are more of objects that are displayed. So now I'm going to talk about the ambivalent uniform. What we see here is portraits and group portraits, and some of the people have unicorn masks. So their heads are veiled, and you see here and here also the unicorn. The unicorn is a reference to a mythological creature which actually did not exist, even though people in the medieval times told themselves stories about it and actually believed it. So here we also have the unicorn and the wearable object, the mask of it. And to me, the unicorn is a symbol of how we as women in the society that we live in, or that I have also grown up in, are socialized from the beginning on to be liking pink, to be wearing dresses, to be behaving nicely and kindly and not loud and not as wild, I would say, as opposed to our male counterparts. And once we choose to also identify as such, we basically put on this mask of the unicorn. We put on this mask of this so-called real or true or proper woman, but it is ambivalent because it is also hard to be taken off. And once you realize that you are also very stuck basically in a role, and you also do not have the same possibilities mostly, and in most branches today, also as the male counterparts, as the men. So there's another one, and now I'm going to say this is the next step of the project, where I'm going to do more of the masks and to focus more on making paintings which are actually going to be very related to the masks. And another thing that I want to do next is to find a way of utilizing these textile works also in a way of how could I wear them or who could wear them. This is going to be basically my next steps in this. Yeah, and this actually was a quick one, I think. I'm already at the end, and I thank you very much for listening. So, yes.
Yeah, and because you mentioned you would like to move from the paintings a little bit more, so have you thought about like creating collaboration with a fashion, or are you heading that kind of a direction?
Well, not necessarily with fashion, but I'm thinking about collaborating with people who would dance, so that the masks are actually worn in movement. I'm very interested in painting scenes that are really like mid-movement. For example, we had one painting where she was pressing lemons, or this person was pressing lemons, and I really like this this moment when you see a person doing something, and I really like to capture this and paint this, movements of hands or movements of bodies. So I would love to then collaborate with people who would, be very expressive in their movements. Mm.
Thanks for the presentation. It's really interesting seeing your process. I just wanted to ask about this recurring motif of like showing a part of the previous painting and another painting, this kind of sort of stacking up. And I just wanted to know, is it, because I know of a couple of other artists to do something like that, and I think it's a really nice idea, but I just wanted to know, is it just as a motif that you want to have as part of your practice, or are you trying to draw some part of the narrative or some part of the meaning from the other painting into the other painting, if that makes sense?
I would say it is actually more of the narrative. I would say it's more of telling a timeline of my own work, also in a way, than it is for drawing a meaning. I mean, there are a lot of symbols in the paintings. So if we go back to this, here we are. There are a lot of symbols already. I mean, yeah. Oh, no. We have the fried egg, and we have this process of shaving mid-movement. And then I would say it might be an evolution. Here we have a self-portrait of me as a leopard or a geopard. And at this moment, I would say I kind of remembered this time. Even though this is not a self-portrait, I think there's always parts of your own feeling and your own state of mind, and also your state of health and of physical feeling is also always in the paintings. So it is kind of a remembering of this time, which is 3 years ago. Yeah.
I really like your colors. They're very interesting, and I like your pinks. Do you ever base your compositions off of master copies, or do you draw inspiration for compositions from historical paintings?
I try not to, but yes, of course, that happened. So there was definitely a Goya there, and that was for me a way of empowering myself. It is basically a good explanation is also how I use mythology and how I use stories and literature. And I try to use it in a way that is empowering for me. And I try to find like a way of looking at stories from the past that are also often recurring or that are crossing in different cultures. So I don't take like the highest meaning in a way. So I'm not saying, okay, I'm the one who can interpret these or explain these, but I'm trying to find a way of saying this is what it means to me, or this is a meaning that I could find for myself. The same would be with the painting that is also visible here, which is this with the mask. And it is Argus, which is also a creature from mythology. And he was actually holding a person or a woman hostage. And I'm trying to not directly reference it, but I'm trying to say, what can I take from this now as being me and being independent and with all my privileges? Yeah.
What do you want to say about the experience of setting up your works at this space, which is a little bit unique, and your works needs also a little bit, specific care of how they're going to be placed and exhibited. Like there, we have two groups there with caps, masks. So what are your thoughts about the difficulties and about it, a comment in a way?
Mm-hmm. One thing I remember from setting up was that we really worked on how the mask would be presented. And I needed to change my initial ideas and my initial practice of having them quite flat on the wall to having them seen from basically all angles so that they are really hanging. And that was very good for me. That was a step where I needed to change my mind how we are going to present it, because I had a really sort of fixed idea, which was, actually quite amazing, because I saw them also in a different light, and I saw them from a different angle, and I realized that there's still a lot to be able to find out about the presentation. Yeah. So with this, I would end. Thank you very much. Yeah.